I think in my head, I wanted to travel. So I did have some like top level goals like that I had written down when I was an undergrad. What are things that, what are my bucket list items? What are my values? So I did have like top level goals, and one of them was living abroad because I had just grown up in Texas at that point. I hadn't been outside really the state even. I definitely hadn't been to Asia. And so, again, knowing those values and your goals and keeping them top of mind, I would suggest, even as, being as serious as looking at them every morning and rewriting them exactly what those are, because you just want them to be top of mind. So when opportunities present themselves, you have the awareness to say that one takes me towards my goals, or that one is aligned with my values.
Welcome back to the Edge of Excellence. I'm your guest host, Sean Phelps, president of CollegeWorks, and today's guest is a true pioneer of innovation and entrepreneurship. John Erik Metcalf is the creator of Austin, Texas's first co-working space, long before remote work and startup culture were mainstream. Since then, he went global. He's the CEO and co-founder of Upgraded, a Y Combinator-backed company building a more circular economy by helping retailers power trade-in and recycling programs for electronics, dealing primarily right now with Apple products. From leading companies across the US, in Mexico City, Stockholm, and Hong Kong, judging startup competitions around the world, and contributing to the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers program, John Erik brings a rare blend of visionary leadership and hands-on execution. He's helped launch everything from data-driven analytics startups that were acquired to disruptive consumer tech, and he's just getting started. John Erik, welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Let's dive in. John, thanks for joining the show today. I'm so pumped to have you. You've got such an interesting story to tell about your career and the startup you're running now and the business that you've built, and just an incredible story to share with our audience about how to be successful and how to find your path. So I want to start where we start off every episode of Edge of Excellence with, tell us your definition of excellence.
Thanks for having me, Sean. My definition of excellence is probably treating people right and paying things forward. I think that's excellence for me. That's what I try to embody in everything that I do, and I think I learned that from my my dad, who's a mechanic, and my mom, who's a nursery worker at a church. I was homeschooled until high school, and so a lot of the lessons that I got hanging out, reading books in my backyard, sitting in the two-car garage next to our single wide mobile home, while my dad was working on cars. He was talking about how he's gonna do a good job for this client. He's not gonna overcharge them, or these folks live in the neighborhood and they need a break, and he's gonna help them out. And so that's what I've tried to word in my life. I think that's what excellence looks like to me.
That's awesome. So, how do you, I guess, incorporate that throughout your career and just in your daily life? And how do you live that?
I guess it's just you just want that's just the main thing to keep top of mind is I think any good coach will tell you that you need to remember um, what your strengths are, and you need to keep your values top of mind so that you can act on them more quickly. So that you can, when faced with any decision, you can say, "What are my core values?" Okay, that makes the decision easier because the variables are clear to me. This is the right direction to go. And I think being an entrepreneur or just trying to be successful in life, often you just need to make decisions fast so that you can get on to the next one. So yeah, having those things booted up, top of mind, all the time. What am I making these decisions off of is super important.
So do the right thing and treat people well and give more than you receive.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's pay it forward. Think about how can I leave this better than I found it, and that applies to the biggest scale of how can I leave the world better than I found it, or down to how can I leave the dog wash better than I found it? I think that's just a mantra that's been, you know, stuck into my head or hidden into my head, and I think it's the best one to live by.
Fantastic. So you mentioned it, that was something that started at a very early age. Like you've kind of been, that's been something that you've just carried with you throughout your whole life. And we want to find out more about, your early years, like high school, college, like, a lot of younger people that are listening to the show aren't really sure, what do I want to do? I liked math in high school. I'm going to go study finance in college. And I think I want to do something in business, or I liked science. I'm going to be pre-med. Maybe I want to be a doctor, but
Yeah.
they're still trying to figure out what are all these different careers. So, you probably, if you're like a lot of our guests, probably didn't totally have it figured out. Couldn't see where life was going to take you at that point, or where you were going to venture to at that point. Like, what were you thinking you were going to do in high school and college?
Mm, I maybe at the very earliest years just wanted to be a pilot because we lived by an Air Force base and there would be jets flying over my head a lot. Um, in in college, I don't think I had any idea. I bounced around in various majors, from social work to economics to ending in computer science. And I think that that's the way to figure things out is in a way to bounce around. I also, mm, what I chose to be an entrepreneur, kind of starting with college works painting when I was in undergrad, um, in a lot of ways because I felt because I'm very okay with risk. It's not like I didn't have a lot of money to fall back into, but I felt like I have a family to fall back into. That if I take some risks, they're always there for me. And my parents were very much like, anything you do is just icing on the cake. Like you're already blowing our dreams, just by going to college or getting into UT, or now you started this company. That's just blowing them away. So I always just look at things like this is just icing on the cake, and I can always fall back on. For me, it was I can always fall back on getting a job. I can work in tech, or if I'm traveling, I could go be a bartender or something like that. Um, and so that allowed me to take a lot of risks. I was just always totally fine with big swings in income or net worth because I wanted to take bets on myself. So I mean, I would encourage anybody listening. I guess I'm always going to encourage the entrepreneurship path because I think it's the funnest thing you can do in life is play this game of, do my ideas work? Can I get my ideas to work? What can I build? What can I put into the world? But it does come with lots of risk. I don't know if I would take the same path that I took for myself. Um, for example, my friends that got out of undergrad and went into, in my time, it was going to work at Facebook or Google, or something like that. They, even if they just stayed there for 5 years or something, they have a nice nest egg because of all of those early Google shares that they got. And they had that stamp from, I worked at Google, and it made it easier for them, and maybe less risky for them to go out and start their own businesses. So now that you were former Google, you have a little nest egg, or at least you have some RSUs, that are worth something. I might suggest that path as opposed to mine, where I was like, basically after college works, I never had a job again. I just was like, okay, now that I know how to knock on doors and I know how to sell things, yeah, I feel like in my bubble, at least right now, there's this trend of people saying you can just do things, or you can just email people. I saw somebody sharing on LinkedIn the other day, that they just emailed Steve Wozniak randomly, and then Steve Wozniak and that guy ended up getting pancakes in New York City. Um, this whole idea of it, you can just do it. You can just try. You can just build it. it's easier and easier today because of AI. If you have like a random idea that this thing should exist in the world, you can just do it. Just build it.
Yeah, so
um,
much to unpack there. So the supportive family, like we have a similar background, and I don't know, we didn't talk about this before the show. My dad owned a used car dealership, and when it started, and I was
nice.
a kid, it was very small, and they had a service department, and he always did these things for people that other people wouldn't do. Just like taking care of the customer, and he
Yeah,
might lose money, he might make money, but it wasn't even about that. It was just like, well, I'm here to make the community better, and I'm here to like
yeah,
help people, and they need a car to get to work, and they need they need financing to be able to afford it, and I'm going to help them get a better deal so with this credit union instead of this bank, and all these different ways that he would help customers. And I just didn't really understand it. I'm like, why aren't you what are you doing? And but it wound up creating a business that was very sustainable and very successful long term. And then they had the same kind of mindset of, we love you, and there's this unconditional love and support of like, you don't have to go do anything to prove it to us to make us love you.
that's
But
awesome.
if you want to, like, and what they did preach was, we want you to be overqualified. So my folks felt like they didn't have some options. My mom was a nurse and my dad was a small business owner, but they were kind of forced into these paths because that was just the only options available. So they said, hey, if you're happy flipping burgers at McDonald's, do it. We'll support you, but we want you to be overqualified. We want you to be, able to do other things if you choose to. And if that's what you choose to do, like, totally cool. We love you. But do it because be the PhD who just loves flipping burgers, not the,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
This sounds like
So
a Japanese mentality. Like it's fine if you just want to be a sushi chef, but you be the best, very,
be
very
the,
best that you can be.
yeah, be the best. Be that shoe shiner that they put a plaque up, in the
There
Martin
you
Luther
go.
King speech, and the Nick Saban talks about all the time. So, it's very similar mindset. So the hopping around, I'm really curious about that too, because I think some students listening might be like, I might need to change my major. I don't know if I picked the right thing initially. And it sounds like the risk taking was, you had an appetite for that already, but how did you go from social work to economics to computer science? Like, these are very different fields. And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just jump into that.
I mean, I was lucky that those at least in my time, I could just switch majors. There was no application blocking me to get into these programs. So and probably this comes back to being homeschooled, where I was kind of necessarily autodidactic, meaning I was learning myself. I was teaching myself how to learn, and so I kind of applied the same philosophy when I was in undergrad. I was just very willing to take whatever course seemed interesting to me and go down that path. And then, oh, I think I'm going to take an additional, you know, class. So I also added on like a business minor because I was really curious about that. I ended up moving uh, to mainland China because I could never get into this Chinese program that I wanted when I was in undergrad. And so when there was an opportunity a couple years later to move to China, I took that and I studied Mandarin for a year, even though I was a few years out of school, because I thought this is just such a cool opportunity. Anyway, on the bouncing around, I would just say that you know in hindsight, it worked out very well for me. I don't know if that's the correct path for anybody else to follow, but I just got that bug of you can just do things. It's okay to knock on doors. So immediately after college works, I started doing IT consulting because it was the same kind of thing. I just thought about what else am I naturally good at, what do I have a sense for? And I started, instead of painting houses, I started asking people, can I do IT work for your business? And so my cousin was a little older than me. She worked at an art gallery. I set up the Wi-Fi network and the printers at that art gallery. And I remember that they told me what to charge. I think somebody else was quoting them like $85 an hour, and so they were like, "Well, if you charge us $65 an hour, that's totally fine with us." And I was like, "Okay, thank you, that's amazing." And so then I did the art gallery, and then the husband of the owner of the art gallery had a hedge fund, and then I did the same thing for his office when he moved. And then he found out we got to know each other. He found out I did computer science, and I ended up building a website for them where they could upload an Excel doc that had the fund's performance, and it would create PDFs for their LPs to log into. And that just like put me on this whole path of just knocking on people's doors and asking how I could help them with IT or computer stuff, building things. Um, and I think so. The main learning there is just ask for opportunities, and then the next thing, there's something that I really love, something to remember that I really love, and that's if you're trying to figure out what you're good at, think about the thing that is super easy for you, but everybody else seems to think it's hard. So for me, that's talking to people. That's being friendly. That's building trust. Whereas other people might say, "Oh, that is really hard for me. Um, I'm not very good at that." And so to me, I'm like, I can't believe you're not good at it. This is so easy. And that's the thing that I've just leaned into is using my, I don't know, personality to get me into places. So you just have to think about what tools do you as a you individually have in your toolbox.
And it sounds like the lack of fear, like this amazing ability. Like, I'm just going to try and a totally different major and see how
Yeah.
I like it. I'm going to just try to go to Hong Kong and see what that's like. So yeah, what would tell us about that next stage of how did you wind up in a venture capital fund in Asia?
So I got those gigs of doing IT or website building, and that's what pushed me into the direction of computer science. I knew a little bit about programming from when I was a kid, and then I decided, oh, seems like I can make a lot of money going in the computer science direction. And so then when I finished undergrad, I was working for myself. I remember I had contracts, um, where a couple companies were paying me monthly to maintain their websites and push updates and write blog posts and things like that. It was more difficult back then. And I had $3,000 a month of a like retainer, to me, and I was like, "This is amazing. I'm not going to apply for any jobs. I'm set." And so I just got an apartment and, uh, here in Austin, stayed in Austin, and then started working from coffee shops with other people that were software developers or designers, things like that. And then this is early days pre WeWork, and we decided to start a co-working space. And we were one of the first dozen in the U.S. We heard about Citizen Space, which was I think the very first, often recognized as the very first one that started in San Francisco. We heard about that. We bootstrapped it in the sense that we asked all the we had this they had this email list of everybody who was meeting up to um, to work at the coffee shops regularly. It's like 250 people, and we emailed that list and said, "Hey, we want to start a co-working space. This is what it's like. Would any of you be willing to pay us 1 to 6 months in advance so that we can have the money necessary to go and rent this space and furnish it and get it all set up?" And we had 30 people give us money, and we had one person who said, "How about a lifetime membership if I give you $10,000?" This is like a older guy. And with that, we were able to go start, the first co-working space in Austin. It's called Conjunctured, and it was open for 8 years. Opened in 2007, um, and the year after I graduated. Um, and so I'm going to try to fast forward through this story, but having that co-working space, I put together a panel at South by Southwest in 2009. So 2 years after running that space and continuing to do like software development projects myself. I had a panel called Ditch the Valley, Run for the Hills. And it was about the like burgeoning tech ecosystem in Austin, Texas. So Ditch the Valley, Run for the Silicon Hills, which is what they liked to call Austin back then. And one of the guys that was on the panel was from Shanghai, and he came over with a handful of other folks from Shanghai, and they came to our co-working space. We used to have the WordPress barbecue at the space, and so all the folks from Shanghai were over there, and they were like, "Co-working, this is super cool. We have a building or we have a floor in a building in Shanghai where they were a VC fund. They only used half of it, and they were like, "We could give you the other half if you want to come to Shanghai and help us put together a co-working space." So I was 24 and thought that's the very coolest thing I can think of. Absolutely. So went to Shanghai, helped start that co-working space. It was basically up and running in full in like 6 months because that fund was so connected. Then I went and I when I remember when I left, my bank account had just crossed $50,000. So this like consulting work that I was doing, software development work, it crossed $50,000. I bought a brand new MacBook, and with that savings, they weren't paying me anything to start the co-working space, and I wasn't really going to make. We weren't running it as a way to make money. We were running it as a way to give something back to the community, to build something, a place for people to get together. But I moved to Shanghai, started the co-working space. After 6 months, it was up and running, and then I went to Beijing because as I had mentioned earlier, I always wanted to study Chinese. So I ended up doing 3 semesters of Chinese and just living off my savings. And I just thought that was like the very coolest thing I could do. Um, and then I started a company, a data analytics company. This was when Groupon was blowing up. We built a company where we're selling data to Groupon about the state of group buying sites, and Groupon eventually Aqua hired us, and then I went to work at Arbor Ventures as an entrepreneur in residence. So it took me a long time to get there, but
That's
that's
incredible.
the
So
kind
just
of
all these
story how
little
I got there.
adventures that are, leave it better where you found it, do the right thing, treat people well. And it's also this testament of the startup community is incredibly supportive. That was my experience too. I'd go to a coffee meetup of entrepreneurs or a co-working space in Kansas City, and I meet all these people that are like, how can I help you? Like,
Yeah.
and how can I help you? And it's just this like, who can help each other the most is like how you get, credit in that environment. It's not like who's got the most money. It's who's just like helping the most people with the
That's
most
very
things.
true. That's very true.
But it's so cool to see like you didn't do these things with this like end goal in mind of like, well, if I start doing IT stuff for people, then I'll be able to open a co-working space. And if I open a co-working space, I'll get a chance to like go be at a venture capital firm in Shanghai. Like it's just I'm just gonna do it and do it really well, and then things happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my head, I wanted to travel. So I did have some like top level goals, like that I had written down when I was an undergrad. What are things that, what are my bucket list items? What are my values? So I did have like top level goals, and one of them was living abroad because I had just grown up in Texas at that point. I hadn't been outside really the state even. I definitely hadn't been to Asia. And so again, knowing those values and your goals and keeping them top of mind, I would suggest even as you know being as serious as looking at them every morning, and rewriting them exactly what those are, because you just want them to be top of mind. So when opportunities present themselves, you have the awareness to say that one takes me towards my goals, or that one is aligned with my values.
So instead of
That
just fluffing off that introduction of like, oh, cool, nice to meet you, it's like, wait a minute, this
Yeah.
actually pairs nicely with what I want to do. So I can be kind of in tuned to those opportunities that arise. That's incredible. So then you're talk us about this next step. So World Economic Forum is like incredibly impressive name to have on your resume and on your LinkedIn. So that sounds like an amazing experience as well. And I'm really excited to eventually get up to the present day because I really have some questions for you about that too. But talk a little bit about that experience.
After Demand Analytics, which was my company in Hong Kong, which was about a 4 year stint, and then a year at Arbor Ventures, I was about to start another company in Asia, and then just had this feeling like I've got to go back to the US to start my next company in San Francisco. And when I got there, I was looking for friends. I was looking for a community, and I happened to get in touch with folks at the World Economic Forum. It was or I should say, really, it's a community of the World Economic Forum, the Global Shapers community. And is for if the goal of the World Economic Forum is to improve the state of the world, the goal of the Global Shapers community is to improve the state of your community. And so you do a project when you first get in to the program that is helping the city that you live in or the hub that you're in, or it's at least helping to spread some type of awareness about things. Yeah, I had always wanted to go to the World Economic Forum just because I thought it was really interesting. Economics was one of the majors one of the majors that I bounced through when I was an undergrad. Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting. I was attracted to that. Got into that program. I would suggest anybody who's interested in this type of thing, regardless of your what you might think of what the World Economic Forum is like, or it's like old guys doing backroom deals or something. It's for me, it has always been a really positive experience and a well balanced experience. It hasn't necessarily been like politically one side or the other. Um, so yeah, joined that or got into that community when I moved to San Francisco. It's not like a job or anything. It's just a community where I spent the first year in San Francisco just being really focused on that group. And my initial project was bringing together people who were working on eradicating homelessness in San Francisco. Uh, that is an ongoing issue. And so I was trying to bring different groups together and have panels at startups to try to spread information about what was going on and get people involved. Yeah, that just led me to being able to go to the World Economic Forum once when I was a global shaper. And then I've since you age out after 30, but I've gone on my own 4 more times after that, and I'll go again this year. It's just one of those kind of things where it's just fascinating to see people at the very highest level. In a way, it helps me to remember that I can do anything, because when I meet people who are CEOs of massive companies, or they are presidents, or I don't know, world leaders, I really enjoy meeting them and thinking, okay, they're not so much different than I am. That gives me a lot of confidence to think, oh, I could do the same thing. And I think that's the reason why this podcast is so useful. That's the same type of insight that hopefully people listening to this are getting. They're just realizing that you know John Erik Metcalf is a normal guy like me. He's managed to hopefully take a really cool path in life. Seems like I could do the same thing.
That's awesome, man.
Um,
So let's talk about. So you've got got an opportunity to, I think, be also a part of the Y Combinator, and is that how you grew your current business?
yep. There was actually two other guys that started, upgraded, got into Y Combinator. I met them before they moved, like uh, before they moved, right when they moved to the U.S. So longer story, but both of these guys are international folks that I met. One of them that I knew from China. They came over to the U.S. Both finance backgrounds. I had a background in software development or building things, so I came on to help kind of build the company that we were pitching. And our first customer was Apple Sweden. So I was the one to go to Sweden and begin building everything. So I hung out in an Apple store from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day while they were open, just watching and learning how everything works, so that I could build the software that we ended up launching. What that does is we help them sell devices on subscriptions. So pay monthly, get a new device on a regular schedule, and we kind of orchestrate all of that in the background. So there's the shipping an empty box to the customer to get their used device back. There's originating a loan. There's being integrated into the retail point of sale. They're sending the customers the emails along the way to say, hey, welcome to the program, or happy birthday to your device. You'll be able to upgrade in this number of days, things like that. We just orchestrated everything in the background. We did hundreds of millions in sales on that program. It's been really successful, and we just recently decided to launch our own version of that, using our own brand in the US. So we had previously been just behind the scenes operating things for other people, but we took the same platform and knowledge that we developed running that and launched getupgraded.com. And our first offering is a MacBook upgrade program. So it spreads the cost of the MacBook over 36 months. For most people, it's 0% interest, and you can get a new MacBook every 24 months. So this is, the folks we're targeting for that are photographers, videographers, software developers, folks that rely on their MacBook and the speed of their MacBook for their work. But that's just the first start. We're eventually going to get into the whole suite of personal tech devices, both new and used. And we see, the likes of Best Buy, which is a $45 billion company that I think is, doing things in a legacy way and has a lot of drag because they
Yeah,
have
I mean,
all these.
you're Netflix and they're Blockbuster, right?
I'd love to think about it about it that way. I think we have a cool advantage. There have been some, and we have there have been some other companies that have been successful in this space in Europe, but we're trying to bring this model to life in the US, and it's yeah, it's similar to. I think the personal device market should function more like the auto market. Going back to your dad's time, with the car lot, the auto market, the majority of transactions are financed, and the most of the volume happens in the secondary market, on the used device market. And I think that's what we need to bring to life for consumer electronics. Most people would be really well served by a 2 or even 4-year-old MacBook Air, and they could get into that for something like $19 a month or less. Uh, and so if we can bring those used devices to the forefront, make them really accessible for people, that's the goal.
Wow. So I was shopping around on your website a little bit. I think I'm probably going to become a customer very soon. But like, what is the catch?
Thanks.
Like, how do I? What? Like, why would I not? My son's starting middle school. We're going to have to get him a computer soon. Why would I just go buy a computer? Why wouldn't I just do upgrade it? Or I'm assuming I would, right?
I think so. Our offering is 36 months, zero. If you qualify for 0% interest, which today 65% of our applicants or our buyers do qualify for that. We just launched a new partnership with a firm. Um, so assuming you qualify, I'll tell you the reasons to do it and the reasons not to. If you qualify for a 0% interest, you should definitely do it, because you could just leave the cash that you were going to spend in a high yield savings account and earn 4% on it. Our platform or our program includes Apple Care Plus. So if you're somebody who's like, I definitely don't want Apple Care Plus, we might not be the people for you, because that's bundled in our offering. We do that because we need the margin. We have the margin from the device and the margin from the Apple Care. And the way that we offer 0% interest is we give our margin to the bank. So they're not giving Sean 0% interest, without getting paid.
Yeah, there's a dealer fee.
Right. We take more than half of the margin that we would get, and we give it to the bank in order to give Sean 0%. And we do that because we think you're smart. You're not going to go and buy anything with a really high interest rate if you don't have to. So that's the offering. If you want to upgrade after 24 months, this is a perfect program because we make it super easy. we'll, just like we did in Europe, we send an empty box to collect your old device. We pay off the remainder of your first loan, and we help you get into a new device. So it's a really easy upgrade process. I think, yeah, the reasons not to do it is if the interest rate that you get is super high. I'm not going to encourage anybody to go with us if they're going to end up paying a lot of interest. You should try and get as 0% or as low of interest rate as you possibly can. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good offering, and we started about a year ago, w- kind of with full force marketing, and we've been growing 20% a month. It's been hard to maintain 20% growth every month. It gets harder and harder as we get bigger and bigger. We might drop that target down a little bit once we hit a certain threshold. Um, but yeah, it's been really good. We need to add more and more products, more and more new and used devices into the mix.
Wow. So, what is the day to day of running a really rapid growing business that is relatively new to the U.S. market? I mean, what kind of day to day problems are you solving, or things are you dealing with for somebody that thinks, I might want to be, a entrepreneur like John?
Probably the most important thing is bringing on the right people. That's probably what everybody says, but it's so important. Um, and getting the right people in the right seats. I'm a part of EO, or entrepreneurs organization, and they always talk about that. It's like getting the right butts in the right seats. And so I am less likely to do to do formal interviews, or to put a resume, or to put a request for applications out online. Um, I think when you're like sub 100 people, maybe sub 50 people, you can ask your existing employees to find people, because what you're looking for is diversity of ideas, diversity of background, but homogeny of values. So you want people who are going to think very differently to come up with the broad spectrum of ideas, but you want them to all kind of bond around the same values or goals. And a lot of times you find those people through your existing employees. Um, so finding those people, finding out what their long-term goals are, in what their long-term goals are in life, and trying to put them in a position where what they're working on overlaps with their long-term goals. And a lot of times in a small company, what you're looking for is other people who want to be entrepreneurs. So if somebody was to tell me, when I'm interviewing or talking to them, if they were to say, and you might have heard other people say this, I'm not the first one to say it. If they were to say, or they would like let it slip, I only actually want to work here like 1 or 2 years because I really want to start something afterwards. That would be an extremely positive sign to me. I would want to hear that, because I know that by them working with me, there there's a double bottom line. Not only are they learning how to do the job correctly or do it really well and exceed, they have this secondary interest in learning how a business works, and that makes them, like, lean in a little bit further. That means after the call, they're the type of person who is like, hey, I saw that Excel spreadsheet we were looking at. Can you share it with me and show me how it works? And like, let's go through it. I love that type of person, because they are super invested in helping the company succeed, because they want to go replicate it themselves. And so I'm I would constantly look for those kinds of people. And if I only get them for 2 years, that's perfectly fine. I'm totally happy to have a really high performer, and then to be able to invest in them to go off and start other companies, which I've done.
So, what kind of problems are you trying to solve as you're growing that quickly?
Well, the main problem, there's the development side of things. We switched banks from one bank to a firm recently. So there's that side of the business. My co-founder CTO is amazing. He was a VP of engineering at Klarna previously, and I think he has so much of that taken care of. For me, I'm constantly thinking about um, the customer experience and growth. The customer experience, where that's like putting the right people representing us into a customer support role. So right now we have 4.9 stars on Trustpilot, and we're about to cross, or maybe we've already crossed 200 reviews. This is like, it's a small number, but it feels really exciting, and I love that we have such high star ratings, and that's because Dante and Paula and myself, who all interact with customers, we care so much about them having a good experience. And then the other part is growth, is this like constant, okay, it's the 10th, we have done this much in sales. If things continue as they typically do, that means we're going to hit this number, but we're trying to hit this number. What are we going to do to increase this? And it can't just be increase ad budget. We're very actively trying to grow our organic inbound. So our head of growth, Ben, has a YouTube channel that he's developing. He creates shorts. We're like, you know, we're spending the majority on ads, but we're spending a third of it on organic content to try to drive people to us. So those are the two things that I constantly am thinking about, is customer experience and growth.
Yeah, so you have that amazing customer experience, and then that K factor becomes greater than one, and the growth takes care of itself. So
Yes, yes. That's the whole goal of our business, is having loyal customers. We we spend almost everything that we make on a first purchase. We make just a little bit, but the rest of it is spent either giving people 0% interest or on marketing. And then we make this little tiny bit. But our whole brand promise is that some percentage of those, it's not going to be 100%, but a percentage of those people who are our customer today, they're going to come back and upgrade their device, or they're going to buy another device from us. So there's a lifetime value there. So we're not afraid, using made up numbers, we're not afraid to spend $100 to go and find Sean to bring him in as a customer, because we know over the next 6 years we're going to make $800, or I'm this made up number, we're going to make $600 from him. And that's why companies like ours do need venture funding, because you need to fund yourself until profitability.
got it. So you're looking at that, cost of acquisition, lifetime value. Like, how do we dial in those metrics? And I always heard it was like 3 to 1 was the magic number. Is that still the
Right.
magic number?
Yep. That's
So
definitely still what they talk about. So if you're going to spend $100 on acquiring the customer, you want to make $300 back on them, and we think that we have even better metrics than that.
that's incredible. So the economics is coming back. Like, data is a huge part of what you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Like, what is our churn
Constantly.
rate? What's our, click-through rates on these ads? Or like, how is marketing performing, and how is time to, get the device to the customers? Like, are we fast there? Like, you're
Yeah.
looking at tons of metrics.
And I have those in my head. Like, I know the number of customers that we need to be profitable, on to be profitable on just on our own with our monthly sales. I know what that sales number needs to be. It's constantly in my head, just like I'm talking about holding values and goals. Like, those are the things that I write down in my journal every morning to remember, these are my values. And it sounds stupid, but these are my values. These are my goals. These are the metrics I need to hit. And it's just like, I am a machine to be able to rattle off those numbers in a call with our team, with our investors, or if I'm making a decision, I know what my values are and my goals are. Um, and yeah, so love using Excel. I have planned out our path to profitability. I have planned out our path to IPO. I modeled that on how do I get our early investors 50 times their money. I know what that threshold is. And I love doing that. I love planning all of
The
those things
game.
out. It does not mean that we're going to follow exactly what I built. It just means that we have a strategy, we have some type of guiding light, and we're going to reevaluate it constantly and change it. And that's no problem.
That's one of the fun parts of the startup world is you get to pivot your strategy, constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I feel tons of FOMO that we're not necessarily building we're not building AI company right now. We are applying AI in the sense that we need far fewer developers, where we will eventually use robotics to refurbish the devices. So imagine a robotics line where input used MacBook, output clean refurbished MacBook in a box. Um, we will eventually use all of those things, but yeah, we're not building a wrapper around ChatGPT and VS Code, and we're not doing a lot of the
but the
really
hardware is
exciting
an
fun part.
absolutely necessary component to the internet world, right? If without the hardware, can't really do
It is,
much.
yeah, it is, and the addressable market for that is just enormous. Just MacBooks. The number that I have heard is that Apple sells 5 million MacBooks to consumers in the U.S. alone every year. So it's like $6 billion just of MacBooks. It's just such a really big
So
number. I'm
I'm
like, I
sure
just
you've
want a little
gotten
teeny tiny piece of this.
I'm sure you've gotten this question. Why isn't Apple doing it?
I would assume that they will. They haven't. We directly we run this program for them in Europe, and they have a program on iPhones that is exactly like ours. We just took the model that they have on the iPhone and created it for MacBook. I would assume that Apple would do it. I'd love to run it for them. Um, but while they're not, we're happy to, we're going to try to get as many customers as we can on the MacBook and then on the new iPads. But I think the long tail for our business is the used devices. That's the, that's where I think the majority of our volume will ultimately be. We're kind of just starting with MacBooks because Apple hasn't done it yet, and it's a premium it's a premium device. It's the I don't know. It's the using the Tesla example. They started with the Tesla Roadster because it's helps to set their brand at a premium level. You want to sell the really expensive car with the high margins first, and then you can go down market into the Model 3 or into the cheaper models.
Got it. So is that a possible exit strategy? Is like Apple just calls one day and says, "Hey, we'll bring you in."
I can't imagine that happening. I don't expect that to happen. Um, my plan is for us to build a kind of the next iteration of a consumer electronics retailer, one that is focused on helping people manage their devices as well. So if you think about the way uh, things are, traditional retailers like an Amazon, they sell disposable products the same way that they sell assets. So you could buy toilet paper and a MacBook on the same website, and then you're kind of just on your own after you make the purchase. But families are more and more like small businesses in the sense that they both have 20 devices, and those devices have residual value, unlike a lot of other things that you might buy on Amazon or Walmart. Those devices have value, and you probably want to upgrade them on a regular schedule. It doesn't have to be 2 years. Obviously, I know that that's not the thing for everybody. I use a 4-year-old iPad, or you might not want to have brand new devices. But um, just like businesses have asset management systems that have um, a list of all their devices. How much is my fleet worth? If I want to get rid of one, you should be able to just click it. Okay, this is worth $375. Send me a box and send me the cash. You want to be able to turn those devices around more rapidly, and so that's the type of longer term platform that we're trying to build. So where we're a retailer, but we're really a service that is helping people manage these these fleet of devices that help make us superhuman.
And you're that trust point that like it's not a Facebook marketplace, buy a used computer. Like I don't really know what I'm getting here.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
because
That's
that's
kind of
such a concern with used electronics is what is
yep.
this thing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of my. We started with MacBooks in a way because it was something that I was already doing, or some of the other folks on our team. We were already upgrading our MacBooks every 2 years, but we were exactly like you said, selling them on Facebook Marketplace, and that's just it's a hassle. Takes a lot of time. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get, and so we felt like if we can just make this process more seamless, then other people are going to appreciate that because we there's so many of us who have that negative it's who have to deal with that hassle.
Is there a B2C component to upgrade it as well?
Upgraded today is only B2C, is
Okay.
only to consumers,
Or I
and
meant B2B, sorry.
oh yeah, and and we will be B2B eventually. We have already started doing that using our own capital, our own balance sheet to lease devices to friends' companies. It's just I went to a handful of my friends on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, you've seen Upgraded, what we do for consumers on the MacBooks. Would you want to do the same thing for your business?" And the handful of them that I messaged said yes, and we put some money aside, a couple $100,000 in order to fund those leases just to get it started and test what it's like. And that's going really well. So we will eventually kind of systematize that and bring it into Upgraded as well. Because I think, just like I said, small businesses and families, they have so much overlap now that we can really use the same management console for both.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, we have CollegeWorks has moved to devices. So we now have, I'm trying to grab mine on my bag. The This is the
Oh,
way we
wow.
bid jobs. This is how we do contracts. And it's our first year doing it. And we've had to do a bunch of software development as well to go alongside with it. But, long term thinking, that's the way that obviously the world's moving. And
That's really
having
cool.
that device fleet, is something that's in our near future, we're actually dealing with right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a challenge to know what you own and know what it's worth, and be able to have a kind of like really easy way to take action on those devices. Add insurance, sell this, refresh. You just want to click a button for it to happen. Otherwise, it takes a long time.
wow, that's incredible. So, taking us back through your whole journey, I mean, at what point along the way did you discover or maybe start to think, I think I'm doing things right. Like I'm doing things that are making the world a better place, or I'm on the verge of excellence. And when did you feel like it was starting to happen?
I'm pretty positive, so I felt as soon as I got into as soon as I got into undergrad, as soon as I started going to college, I was like, this is beyond what I expected for myself. Um, my parents didn't graduate college. My dad started, um, and so when I first got into to UT, I was like, this is I don't know, this is it for this is so amazing, and I have felt since then that I was on this like path that I was excited about. Um, I would love to build a company that lives on beyond me. I would love to build a company that is providing great jobs for as many people as possible, that paying them fairly, helping them level up in life. I'd love for people to use our services or use anything I build, and for it to uh, help them do the things that they want to achieve. But in a way, I feel like all of that I always am working from this sense of like everything is icing on the cake, uh, and so I don't have, and maybe this is something that uh, maybe I see some entrepreneurs that have such anxiety about succeeding, um, and sometimes that has pushed them ahead further than and faster than me, probably because they're more anxious about it, and so they push harder. So I can't say that my feeling of ice everything is icing on the cake, and lots of optimism is the very best way to do it. But that I don't know, that's what's worked for me. So I kind of feel like as long as I'm following my values and building things that I'm excited about, I'm hanging out in this excellence space, and I'm happy to just share that with the world.
That's incredible. And there's so many things that you're doing that can have a positive impact that I'm sure like some of this is, waste reduction. Like if we can make these devices useful again, like there's so much waste and there's so much, landfills filled with batteries that, probably could have that computer probably could have lived on, right?
That's right.
And or giving somebody access, the college student who it's like, I don't have, I'm spending so much on tuition, like I can afford $50 a month, but I can't just get the device right now, but I kind of need the device to like do well in school or to start a business or to learn how to code
Yeah.
or whatever I'm trying to do, that you're giving people access to achieve their goals, reducing waste, while building an incredible business, while providing great jobs for other people. It's just a hub. You're like a hub of like, how can I help as many people in as many ways as possible?
Totally what I want to do. Thank you for saying that. How can I help as many people as possible is, I mean, that totally aligns with what I want to what I want to be up to in life.
So, for any of our listeners that have shared the experience of at some point in their career experiencing college works, you weren't here forever. You got a summer of running a painting business in Texas. What still sticks with you? What are some lessons from that experience that you've maybe used in your career, or that mentioned earlier? Just like you can just do it. You can just knock on doors. You can go do it.
That's exactly it. I remember being in a training session for College Works, and one of the things that they were telling us about, this is before I had like officially signed up, was, you know, so many successful people go through this, and they will tell you afterwards that knocking on doors and learning how to present yourself correctly and uh, talk to people in a non-alarming way, how to stand at the door. If you're opening the door, don't just stand straight in front of it, kind of stand to the side, be approachable. That has probably helped me like tremendously. Just that's why I wanted to do it. I was thinking, oh, I really want to practice at that. That's going to be awesome. Um and I mean, God, knocking doors. I'm focusing on the knocking doors part because it is so impactful, because it's like you just do it over and over and over again. Um, but running the business over the summer was also really empowering, because I hired and managed. You have to manage your crew, both my friends and professional painters that I found on Craigslist. And that's really great experience too, of making sure that they did a great job, um, that they're showing up on time, understanding their motivations. It's a lot of times the professional painter that comes out there is a 55-year-old guy who's been doing this a long time, and he has different motivations than your 20-year-old college student buddy, and you have to understand those things and understand why they showed up late. And I mean, I also had some crazy painters who you have to tell them you have to fire because uh, because they don't show up on time, or they're making the customer feel anxious. Uh, all of that is just such great experience to get when you're in when you're in your teens or early 20s.
So it's still stuff you have used in your career. That's incredible. Um,
Absolutely.
And I think the deliberate practice, that's what I, talk a lot about in interviews or training events, is just the idea that, like, to get good at things, it takes the 10,000 hours. And we can teach you, how do you sell something, or how do you analyze your profitability, or how do you make a really efficient game plan for your team to go execute and get this project done in an efficient way. We can teach it all day long, but you're never going to really understand it until you just go out and do it. And if you do it and you get 10,000 reps at knocking on doors, and 100 reps of making a sales pitch, and a couple hundred reps of talking to your crew and giving them a game plan, and either holding them accountable for, we didn't do things right and we got to fix it, or wow, we did a great job and I'm really proud of you guys and we got a 5-star review and this customer loves us. This is great.
Yeah.
Though, just going through those experiences, you become better from it. And I get a lot of new people that ask me, what would you do differently? And I'm like, well, there's nothing I could do differently. Like, I did it the best that I could at the time. I would do it so much better now, but I had to, there was nothing you could have told me that would make me good at it. I had to go do it. I had to go. I remember training a crew and they were sloppy. They would get paint on the concrete, or the driveway, and hey, we can't get paint on stuff. We can't get paint on stuff. And then I trained another crew and said, hey, before we start this project, I want you to clean up this dried paint for a little bit. And I let them try to clean up like old dried paint that had been on the client's driveway for probably 10 years. And they couldn't clean it up. And then I got some wet paint out and threw it on the ground and was like, all right, let's clean that up. And we cleaned it up in like 30 seconds. And I was like, all right, you see how easy it is to clean wet paint, how hard it is to clean dried paint. So we're going to focus on, cleanliness, because I really cared a lot. I cared about the customers. I was in my hometown and I knew some of these people, my, friends' parents, or some of the people we painted houses for. We did my grandma's porch. Like, I wanted to do a really, really good job for the community. And so that crew was super clean. And I was like, well, I learned how to, I knew that cleanliness was important, but I learned how to teach it in a way that it would stick, and in a way that, would work for my business. So trial and error and just experience is so critical to build those skills.
Yes, that's right. You got to get the reps in.
Got to get the reps in. So, any last advice for that 20 somethings that's, on the precipice of what path should I take? Should I take this risky path? Should I go, start doing freelance IT work? Should I move to China? Should I, join this crazy economic group that I have no experience with, but I want to go see what this is all about? Like, taking all these risks, what advice do you have for somebody that's trying to find their path and figure out what risks they should take?
You make all of those decisions based on the goals and values that drive you. And so the first thing to do, if you haven't done it, or even if it's been a couple months, even especially if it's been years, is to write out, what are the things that I care about in life? What are the things that I want to experience in life? And this is just like a fun brainstorming exercise where you hang out by yourself, and maybe you even talk with ChatGPT or something like that to um, help you brainstorm. What are those things that I care about in life? What are the things that I'm really good at and come really easy to me? Those are your tool belt. Those are the things that you'll use to solve problems in the future. And then what are my values? So what are the things that um, I care about in life? And sometimes it's a lot of basic. Those answers can be very basic. They can be the things that um, you heard growing up, of do unto others as that you want them done to you. A lot of people hear that. It could be pay it forward. A lot of those really basic ones are really useful, not because of the phrase itself, but because of all the past meaning that it might have to it. So do this exploration exercise, and do it frequently. Ask yourself the same questions over and over and over again, and then um, keep those top of mind. And you keep those top of mind. Sometimes it's post-it notes in your shower, or on your mirror in the bathroom, or on your computer, or something like that. For me, it might be, I picked up this habit from an old friend just a couple of years ago. it's writing them and rewriting them every morning. And it takes time, but it burns them into your head. So spend time thinking about your goals, your values, things that you want to experience. And basically all other decisions and all the path finding from there is possible if you have those things booted up into your top of mind. And
Awesome.
you're the only one that can write them for yourself. It's only you. Doesn't matter what your parents told you. It doesn't matter where you think you should go. You're the only one that can create those. So don't ask for any help. Just write it up yourself.
That's awesome. I think that I use this in a couple of other episodes, but the idea that, if you're on a path in the woods and you can see the path in front of you, it's not your path. Because, somebody else has walked that path, and the path that, it was Reid Hoffman that started Netflix. You can't,
Reed Hastings.
Hastings that started Netflix. You can't just look at that playbook and go, all right, well, we're going to do that for MacBook. So I'm just going to do exactly what that person did, because it's not going to work, and it's not your path, and you're finding your path. And the audience needs to sit down. We say sit down in a park under a tree and just spend some time and thought. Think about your goals, write down some SMART goals, make those actionable 90-day goals and all that. But really think about what you want in the future, and then use things like this to explore where you can possibly go and inspire you to find an interesting or creative way to do it. I really appreciate the insights. You got some amazing insights for the audience today, and we're cheering you on and really rooting for your company's success and your success and fulfillment.
Thanks, Sean. Same to you, and same to everybody else going the college works painting path, or just explore the exploration path.
Thanks, John.